Hi, beautiful souls. I'm your storyteller, James. Imagine loving someone with your entire heart, only to have them walk away the night you were supposed to start your forever. 5 years later, she returns, not alone, but with three little boys who look just like him. And when he sees them, everything he thought he lost comes crashing back. This is a story of betrayal, heartbreak, and a love that refuses to die. The night was supposed to be perfect. Maya stood in the center of Alex Hayes' penthouse living room, adjusting the last candle on the dining table. Soft golden light flickered against the glass windows, and the rain outside painted the skyline with silver reflections. She had been smiling for hours. Her hands trembled with excitement, not nerves. Tonight was the night she would tell him. She wore a soft gray silk dress, one Alex once said, made her look like moonlight turned into a woman. She remembered that compliment with warmth in her chest. On the table sat a small velvet box, not for her, but for him. Inside was a tiny pair of baby socks. She imagined the way his face would light up. She imagined the way his arms would wrap around her. She imagined the way he would whisper, "Maya, we're going to be a family." Maya took a deep breath, pressing a hand to her stomach, still flat, barely showing. 2 weeks ago, a doctor had confirmed what she already suspected. She carried life inside her. 3 lives. Triplets. Though she didn't know that detail yet. Her smile widened when she heard the elevator doors slide open. Alex's footsteps were sharp, fast, echoing through marble flooring like a storm approaching. She stepped forward, smoothing her dress, her heart dancing with hope. "Alex," she whispered, glowing. But he didn't smile, not even close. He loosened his tie like it was suffocating him, tossed his phone on the couch, and didn't even notice the candles. He didn't notice her hopeful smile. He didn't notice the love in her eyes. "What is all of this?" he finally asked, voice low and flat. "A dinner," Maya said, trying to keep her tone steady. "I cooked your favorite. I thought we could celebrate." He stared at her, but there was no warmth in his eyes, only distance, only exhaustion, only something cold, something unfamiliar. Maya's throat tightened. "I wanted tonight to be special," she said softly. The rain tapped harder against the glass, almost as if the world knew something terrible was about to happen. Alex didn't sit down. He didn't remove his coat. He didn't walk toward her. He walked past her. "Maya, we need to talk." The air left her lungs. Those 4 words had never led anywhere good in any story she'd read or watched. She swallowed. "Is everything okay?" He turned, and suddenly she felt small beneath his gaze, like he was making a decision far older than this moment. "I don't believe in forever." "Maya." The sentence shattered in the space between them. "What?" she whispered, almost laughing. She thought he was joking. He had to be joking. But Alex didn't joke about anything. "I don't want to continue this." His tone wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was final. Her knees weakened. The shimmering skyline blurred behind her. "You don't mean that," she forced out. "We love each other. We're building something. You told me I was—" "I know what I said," Alex cut in, "and I was wrong." The candles on the table flickered from her trembling. Maya reached for his hand. He pulled away. That tiny movement broke something inside her. "I am not enough for you, is that it?" she whispered. He didn't answer. Silence was louder than any truth. Maya's eyes stung. She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to steady the ache. "But Alex, why now? Why like this?" He looked out toward the rain-soaked skyline. "I can't do dreams, Maya, or wishes, or promises." His jaw tightened. "I don't believe in forever." Her voice cracked. "But I do." He exhaled sharply, annoyed, like her belief in love was a burden. "You deserve someone who wants that. It just isn't me." Her body went numb. She didn't know how long she stood there, seconds, or maybe the world stopped spinning. The candles looked like tiny dying stars. She wiped her cheeks. Her voice was barely audible. "I made dinner," she whispered again, as if reminding him could rewind time. He walked to the door. "Maya, please don't make this harder." Her chest caved. "You're ending us? Here? In a heartbeat, without a fight?" He didn't look back when he answered. "Yes." The word detonated inside her. Her breath broke, her heart broke, her world broke. She grabbed her purse, grabbing nothing else, not the box with the baby socks, not her coat. The velvet box remained on the table, unopened. The secret inside remained unspoken. Maya walked out barefoot into the rain. The elevator doors closed behind her, sealing her heartbreak on the other side. The rain soaked her instantly. She didn't care. She walked into the street, the city lights smearing like watercolor through her tears. She kept walking, faster, like distance might erase pain. Every memory of him echoed inside her. Every kiss, every whispered dream, every night they stayed up talking about their future. Now that future no longer existed. Her vision blurred. Her body shook violently. Her lips trembled. She stopped under a street lamp. Her shoulders caved in, and finally, Maya cried. Not soft tears, deep, broken sobs that shook her entire existence. The rain washed her makeup away, but not the pain. She wrapped her arms around herself, trembling, desperate to feel something other than the emptiness he left. Her voice cracked through the storm. "How could you walk away from us?" As if answering her, thunder rolled across the sky. Maya placed a trembling hand over her stomach, the place where her secret rested. Her voice broke as she whispered, "You're not alone. I promise." She lifted her face toward the sky, the rain tasting like salt and heartbreak. She inhaled deeply, and in the darkest, most fragile whisper ever spoken, "I'm pregnant." Maya's fingers tightened over her stomach as lightning flashes, revealing Alex standing high in the penthouse window, watching her walk away. Rain drowned the city that night. Maya stood beneath the street lamp, shivering, one hand over her belly, the other clutching her purse. Her whisper still echoed in the storm. "I'm pregnant." Her fingers tightened around her coat as if holding herself together. Thunder cracked. Taxi lights approached through sheets of rain. She stepped forward and lifted a shaking arm. The car slowed. The back door opened. Warm air escaped from the inside, fogging the windows. She slid into the seat, soaked and trembling. The driver glanced at her through the mirror. "Rough night?" Her voice was barely audible. "Just drive." He didn't ask further. Some pain is too visible to question. The city blurred past, neon lights bleeding into watery streaks across the glass. Maya pressed a hand to her stomach again, not from nausea, from instinct. "You're safe," she whispered to the life growing within her. "You're all I have now." The cab pulled up to her small apartment. Her clothes clung to her body, heavy and cold. She paid the driver with shaking hands. Inside, the apartment felt foreign now, a place filled with dreams that no longer existed. She moved slowly, as if every step hurt. She grabbed a duffel bag from her closet. No hesitation, no second thoughts. She shoved clothes inside, a few shirts, jeans, a sweater. Her hand stopped when she found an old hoodie of Alex's, forgotten in her laundry basket. She held it to her chest. For a moment, she let herself feel everything she had been holding in. Then she folded it gently and placed it in the bag. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Alex. She didn't answer. She turned it off. She zipped the bag, wiped her cheeks, and inhaled sharply. She wasn't running out of fear anymore. She was leaving to survive. Downstairs, she booked a bus ticket to a small coastal town hours away. Someplace where Alex Hayes, CEO of Hayes Corporation, ruler of skyscrapers and fortune, would never think to look. The bus station was nearly empty, the overhead lights flickering. Maya sat alone on a cold metal bench. Around her, people were sleeping, scrolling their phones, whispering. But Maya just stared at her hands. She had once imagined showing him ultrasound photos with joy. Now she sat here with rain dripping from her hair, waiting to disappear. The bus hissed as it arrived. She climbed aboard, choosing the last seat, by the window. The engine rumbled to life. As the bus pulled away, she looked back one last time. The skyline glittered in the rain. Somewhere up in one of those glowing towers, Alex Hayes lived his polished, perfect life. He would wake up tomorrow and never notice she was gone. Or so she believed. Hours later, at sunrise, Alex stood in the penthouse with red-rimmed eyes. Her purse was gone. The dinner had gone cold. The candles had burned to stubs. The velvet box still sat unopened on the table. For a man who never bowed to anything, not business losses, not boardroom battles, the silence of that empty room defeated him. His chest tightened. She left. He forced a bitter laugh. Of course she did. He told himself it was a relief. He told himself she was too emotional, too naive, too attached. He told himself anything that kept him from feeling. "She'll move on," he muttered. He scrubbed his face with his palms. "And I'll forget her." But when he walked past the table, his eyes caught the small velvet box. He opened it. Inside were tiny baby socks. His stomach clenched. He froze. Maya hadn't planned a farewell dinner. She had planned a beginning. He slammed the box shut as if it burned him. "No," he whispered. "This is good. She deserves someone else. I don't do forever." He walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and watched the morning sun break through clouds. He tried to convince himself he didn't care. He tried to convince himself he was free. But the truth settled in his chest like a weight he couldn't lift. He had chased money his whole life. He won every negotiation, he conquered every industry. But in the quiet of that empty penthouse, he had never felt more defeated. Meanwhile, Maya changed buses twice to avoid being followed. Her body ached. Each bump on the road felt like a punch to her spine. At a small-town clinic miles away, she sat in the waiting room, dizzy and exhausted. When the nurse called her name, Maya stood up. Her vision swayed. Her breathing quickened. Inside the small examination room, a soft-spoken doctor asked gently, "How far along are you?" Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Not very. I just found out." The doctor examined her, brows drawing together in concern. "You've been under extreme stress. Your blood pressure is dangerously high." Maya nodded weakly. The doctor guided her to lie back for the ultrasound. Cold gel, trembling hands, dimmed lights. Maya stared at the ceiling, fighting tears. Then, a faint, rhythmic sound filled the room. Not one heartbeat. Not two. Three. The doctor turned the screen toward her. "Maya, you aren't carrying just one baby." Her breath caught. "You're carrying triplets." Maya's eyes widened, tears pooling again, but this time from shock, awe, fear, and overwhelming love. The doctor leaned forward, voice firm yet gentle. "You must protect yourself from emotional stress. Your body cannot take another shock like this." Maya swallowed, nodding slowly. For the first time since the rainstorm, she felt something growing inside her besides pain. Purpose. The doctor squeezes her hand. "Maya, if you don't prioritize peace, you could lose all 3 babies." Maya freezes, because peace is the only thing Alex Hayes has never given her. Alex Hayes leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse office, the skyline of the city stretching out like an endless, glittering grid. He hadn't slept. Not properly. Not in days. His eyes were bloodshot, his suit wrinkled, and his usually immaculate hair stuck in wild strands. The city below went about its usual rhythm, unaware that its most powerful man was unraveling. He poured himself a coffee from the sleek machine in the corner. The mug clinked against the counter, empty, just like the apartment she had left behind. He reached for the scarf she had forgotten, soft against his fingers. It smelled faintly of her perfume, vanilla, jasmine, something uniquely her. A simple scent, but it carried years of laughter, stolen glances, quiet moments that had once felt infinite. Alex turned it over in his hands, his jaw tightening. He could almost hear her voice, almost feel her hand brushing against his arm, almost see the sparkle in her eyes when she teased him about his stubbornness. He slammed the scarf onto the desk. "No," he whispered. I can't." But every time he tried to convince himself, the memories returned. The way she had smiled at him that night, the way she had trusted him without reservation, the way she had let herself love him completely. The penthouse was quiet, sterile, cold. The office staff moved around him, unaware of the storm behind his eyes. He hadn't spoken to anyone in days, barely answered calls, and meetings blurred into meaningless chatter. Sleep had become a stranger. Each night he lay in his king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling, counting shadows instead of sheep. He would close his eyes only to see her standing under that street lamp, drenched, fragile, whispering the words that shattered him. "I'm pregnant." He shook his head, trying to erase the image. He poured another coffee. It tasted bitter, but he drank it anyway. Chasing alertness he didn't need, because he had no idea how to face the rest of his life awake. Work was all he had left. Emails, board reports, conference calls, mergers, acquisitions, numbers, graphs, contracts. The world demanded efficiency. The world demanded results. But no spreadsheet, no merger, no signature could quiet the gnawing emptiness inside. The office assistant knocked softly. He didn't hear her. She tried again. Alex blinked, focusing on the stack of papers in front of him. "Sir, these are the quarterly reports." He nodded absently, not reading a single line. Instead, his mind wandered back to her apartment. The empty mug she had left in the kitchen. The little notes she used to leave in his briefcase. Her handwriting looping with care, warmth, and love. His chest tightened. Pain gnawed at him. But still, he told himself it didn't matter. He was Alex Hayes, a man who could control everything, a man who never lost. Except now. Except to her. He paced the office, hands in his pockets, feet dragging. The city lights cast long shadows against the walls. He stopped at the window, gripping the glass, staring out as though the skyline could give him answers. Why did I let her go? He clenched his fists so tight the knuckles turned white. He remembered her laugh echoing in the halls, the way she had scolded him playfully for working too late, the way she had gently corrected him when his arrogance showed. He hadn't realized it then, but her patience, her humility, her kindness, those were the very things he had taken for granted, and now they were gone. Alex sank into his leather chair, rubbing his temples, sleep-deprived, exhausted, haunted. He felt the pulse of regret thundering through his veins. It wasn't quiet, it wasn't subtle, it screamed. Even at night, he couldn't escape it. Even in the high-rise penthouse filled with luxury, the silence tormented him. Every familiar object became a reminder. The coffee machine that once made her favorite latte. The scarf now folded neatly on the desk. The empty space on the couch where she used to curl up with a book. He tried distractions, calls, meetings, late-night flights, business trips, but nothing worked. Each day was a repetition of failure. Each night was a confrontation with his conscience. Sleep refused him. Dreams tortured him. And yet, he refused to reach out. Pride, fear, and guilt warred inside him. He couldn't admit he missed her. He couldn't admit he was desperate. He couldn't admit he needed her. Instead, he buried himself in work. Contracts, negotiations, presentations, endless financial reports. He became a shadow of the ruthless, commanding CEO the world admired. The difference: his victories felt hollow, his power meaningless. The HR department called him in for a routine check-in. He walked in with a stiff back, trying to hide the trembling in his hands. The receptionist glanced at him, frowning, noticing the dark circles under his eyes. "Mr. Hayes, are you okay?" she asked. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Inside the HR office, he sank into the chair, running his fingers along the edge of the polished oak desk. He avoided eye contact. He didn't want to see the curiosity. He didn't want to admit he was unraveling. The HR manager cleared her throat, handing him a file. "Sir, there's a letter for you." He raised an eyebrow, already weary of paperwork. Then he looked at the letterhead. His breath caught. It was her handwriting. Maya Carter. Alex froze. His fingers tightened on the edge of the desk. He hadn't seen her name since she vanished. He hadn't even allowed himself to think of it consciously. His chest pounded. A cold sweat broke across his forehead. He felt like the world had tilted on its axis. He opened the envelope slowly. The paper inside was crisp, formal, yet personal. It wasn't a note. It wasn't a message. It was a resignation. Her resignation from his company. Everything hit him at once. The finality, the distance, the absence he had tried to deny. A hollow ache spread through him, deeper than anything he had ever felt. He couldn't breathe. The office blurred around him. He gripped the desk to keep from collapsing. His knuckles were white, his heart hammering. Maya had not only left him, she had erased her presence from every part of his life, even the professional. He wanted to scream. He wanted to chase her down. He wanted to beg, to plead, to make her stay. But he couldn't move. The pulse of regret throbbed in his temples. It whispered relentlessly, "You lost her. You let her slip away. You were too late." For the first time in his life, Alex Hayes felt powerless, and it terrified him. He sank back into his chair. He could feel the sharp sting of his failures piercing through the armor he had built over decades. Everything he had controlled so meticulously, the boardroom, the market, the media, was meaningless now. Nothing could fix this. Nothing could undo what he had done. His eyes landed on the stack of reports on the desk. They were meaningless. His wealth, his status, his empire, empty. All he could think about was her, and the life that had begun without him. Alex's hand trembles as he reads the last line of her resignation letter. "I can't work for someone who no longer believes in us. I hope you someday understand." He drops the paper, staring at it like it's a verdict, his chest tightening with a realization that may shatter everything he thought he controlled. 5 years, a span of time long enough to change everything, and yet short enough to leave scars that never fully healed. Maya Carter stood in front of the mirror in her downtown apartment, adjusting the fitted blazer she now wore as a symbol of power she had fought to earn. The reflection looking back was not the fragile, broken woman who had vanished that rainy night. It was someone refined, poised, confident, unshakable. Her brown skin glowed with the confidence of a woman who had reclaimed her life, her choices, her independence. Her eyes, once soft with trust, now carried the sharp clarity of someone who had endured betrayal and emerged stronger. She had learned that survival required more than resilience. It required transformation. The apartment smelled faintly of fresh coffee and citrus, her new signature scent. It was a small luxury, a ritual to remind herself that she was no longer defined by someone else's absence or arrogance. Her phone buzzed on the marble countertop, breaking her reflection-induced trance. The name on the screen made her pause. "Maya Carter," the caller said, crisp and professional. We'd like you to manage the biggest charity gala of the year. Are you available?" Her heartbeat quickened, not from fear, not from hesitation, but from the thrill of opportunity. She leaned against the counter, eyes narrowing as she processed the words. "And the client?" she asked, voice steady. A pause, then the words, "Hayes Corporation." Maya's breath hitched. The name alone carried weight, power, and history. A history she had left behind, yet one that refused to fade completely. 5 years of struggle, 5 years of late nights, early mornings, painstaking work, building credibility, creating a reputation, carving her name into an industry that had once overlooked her. And now it demanded her presence. The irony wasn't lost on her. She placed her hand over her stomach, a subconscious gesture she still performed in moments of deep reflection. The babies she had carried, nurtured, and protected, now 3 vibrant little boys, had given her purpose. But they also reminded her of the man she had left behind, Alex Hayes. She closed her eyes, breathing in, steadying herself. Maya had promised herself she would never let him, or anyone else, control her emotions again. "Yes," she said finally, voice firm. "I can do this. I will do this." The days that followed were a whirlwind of preparation. Maya threw herself into planning, as if the act itself could shield her from memories she wasn't ready to confront. From the choice of flowers to the lighting layout, from catering menus to the meticulous guest list, every detail was executed with precision. She spoke to vendors with a calm authority, her voice steady, confident, commanding attention without demanding it. There was no trace of the young woman who had vanished in tears 5 years ago, no hint of hesitation, no shadow of doubt. Yet, at night, when the house was quiet, she would catch herself gazing at the horizon, thinking of him. Alex Hayes, the man whose rejection had once broken her, whose absence had forged her into someone stronger, someone unrecognizable to the girl she had been. The night of the gala arrived. The city skyline shimmered with lights, a reflection of wealth, ambition, and influence. Maya walked into her car, her heels clicking against the polished marble of her building lobby, each step a reminder of the power she now carried. Her heart, however, betrayed her with a subtle flutter. Not fear, not panic, but recognition, an instinctual warning that history might cross her path tonight. She entered the ballroom's preparation area, overseeing the final touches with the exacting eye of a professional who had learned the value of control. Staff moved efficiently around her, placing centerpieces, adjusting lights, arranging silverware. Maya's presence commanded respect without a word. Then the call came again. One of her assistants whispered, nervous, almost hesitant, "Ms. Carter, they're ready for the final walkthrough. Hayes Corporation has requested your presence immediately." Maya paused. Her hand brushed her blazer. Her eyes narrowed slightly. The name still carried weight, still tugged at threads she had sewn closed with years of effort. She reminded herself she was no longer that frightened girl. She was Maya Carter, mother of 3, an accomplished woman, a professional who had earned her space in the world on her own terms. The elevator ride up felt interminable, each floor passing in slow, deliberate increments, each second stretching into a heartbeat of anticipation. She focused on her breathing, grounding herself in the knowledge that she was here as a professional, nothing else. The doors opened, revealing the grand ballroom in all its opulent glory. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen rain, casting a shimmering glow across the polished marble floors. Tables were perfectly aligned, each centerpiece a work of art, candles flickering softly, reflecting in the silverware. Music floated gently in the background, a curated playlist designed to charm without distraction. Maya stepped onto the carpeted aisle leading to the center of the room, her heels making soft, deliberate sounds. All eyes weren't on her yet, but she felt the weight of expectation in the air. This was the stage she had claimed, the arena she had built for herself. Her heart thumped quietly, not from fear, but from the memory of the first time she had walked away, from the memory of what had been stolen from her, from the anticipation of what she might face tonight. The moment of truth approached. Every step forward felt heavier than the last, loaded with a history that refused to be ignored. And then she saw him. Maya froze in the doorway, the ballroom lights reflecting in the polished floors, as the man she had once loved, once feared, and once left behind, entered from the opposite side. Alex Hayes. Her pulse quickened. Everything she had built, everything she had become, was about to collide with the man who had never stopped existing in her mind. Alex froze mid-step, the world narrowing to a single point of focus. Maya Carter stood at the other end of the grand ballroom, and yet she was no longer the same fragile figure he had left behind years ago. Her presence filled the room without needing to speak. The gentle sway of her hair, the calm confidence in her posture, the subtle elegance of her dress. Everything about her screamed a woman reborn, untouchable, radiant with the strength she had forged through pain. The chandelier light caught her features, casting a soft glow over her high cheekbones and determined eyes. It illuminated the quiet authority she exuded, the kind of authority that didn't demand attention but naturally commanded it. Alex's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to stop, to turn away, to deny what he felt. But he couldn't. "Maya?" he said, voice barely above a whisper. His tone carried the weight of years of regret, sleepless nights, and the ache of missed opportunities. She turned slowly, every fraction of her movement deliberate, measured, impossible to read. Her eyes met his, cool, distant, unreadable, shielded by a wall she had painstakingly built. Time seemed to stretch. The music in the background faded. The chatter of guests became nothing more than a hum. Everything else dissolved except for the two of them, separated by the expanse of the ballroom, but tethered by the invisible threads of history. Alex stepped closer, tentative, almost afraid of shattering the fragile control she had over herself. Every step he took echoed with memories he could no longer escape. The nights they had spent talking about dreams, the mornings she had brushed her fingers across his tie, the moments of quiet laughter. They all surged at once, leaving him breathless. Maya's lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't speak. She didn't flinch. Her gaze stayed locked on him, unwavering, unyielding. He wanted to apologize. He wanted to explain. He wanted to beg for forgiveness. But the words stuck in his throat. They were meaningless without action, and he knew it. The sound of laughter caught his attention, small and joyous, a sound that pierced his chest like a knife. He glanced down. 3 little boys, identical in features, rushed toward Maya. Their curly hair bounced with each step, eyes wide and sparkling with joy. Tiny hands clutched the hem of her dress as they ran, calling her name in unison. "Mama!" Alex's breath caught. The sound was jarring, familiar, and yet alien. The boys looked like him. Their eyes, their smiles, their expressions, everything mirrored parts of himself he had never realized he had left behind. Maya bent down instinctively, arms opening as the boys clung to her. She hugged them, laughter spilling from her lips, and for the first time since she had vanished, Alex saw her softness, the same warmth he had once adored. His body froze again, caught between awe and terror. These were his sons. His life, once shattered, now stood before him in 3 living, breathing reminders of what he had lost. He wanted to speak, to reach out, to bridge the gap. But Maya's eyes flicked toward him for only a heartbeat, and he realized she was testing him, measuring, seeing if he had changed, seeing if he could survive the weight of what he had done. The boys tugged at her dress, giggling and spinning around her legs. Maya's laughter carried over the ballroom, light and musical, yet It carried authority. She didn't need him to intervene. She was in control, and that control, that calm confidence, cut him deeper than any words ever could. Alex took a tentative step forward. His hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the realization of what had been taken from him and what now stood before him. The years of absence had hardened him, yes, but they had also left him painfully aware of how fragile and precious life could be. He wanted to call out, to demand answers, to demand a place back in their lives. But he knew better. He had to earn it. Not just her forgiveness, but trust. Not just a place in her life, but a place in theirs. The boys' laughter grew louder. They ran circles around her, their tiny feet skidding across the polished marble. She spun with them, lifting them briefly into her arms, keeping them close. And for a moment, Alex saw the full weight of what he had abandoned. Love, family, life that he had never truly understood until it was gone. He swallowed hard, feeling a strange combination of fear, awe, and desire. The kind of desire that went beyond passion, beyond lust. It was longing for what he had lost, and perhaps what he had never truly had. Maya finally straightened, holding her sons close. Her eyes scanned the room, briefly locking on his. There was no accusation, no hatred, just the measured calm of someone who had learned the strength of patience and the value of boundaries. Alex wanted to speak, to bridge the silence, but he found himself mute, trapped by the magnitude of the moment. This was not a reunion of lovers. It was a confrontation of souls. Two people changed by time, separated by betrayal, now standing in the orbit of one undeniable truth. They were forever connected, whether they liked it or not. The boys giggled again, tugging at her sleeves, and she knelt to their level. The sight of her bending down, protective and nurturing, tore at something deep inside Alex. For the first time in years, he realized that life without her had been a series of empty victories. All his power, wealth, and accomplishments felt meaningless compared to this small, chaotic, beautiful family he had walked away from. He stepped closer, almost unconsciously, drawn by a force he could not resist. The room seemed to shift around him. People moving, music playing, candles flickering, they all faded into insignificance. Maya turned her head just slightly, watching him, evaluating him. Alex's chest tightened, his pulse raced. Every fiber of his being screamed to reach out. The boys suddenly noticed him. They stopped, staring with innocent curiosity. Their small mouths opened, their tiny hands reached toward him, as if instinctively sensing a bond they had never been allowed to explore. Alex froze. He wanted to kneel, to scoop them into his arms, but he knew it wasn't his right. Not yet. He could only watch as Maya's arms held them close. Her gaze met his again, calm, unreadable, unyielding. He could see the faintest flicker of challenge in her eyes. Prove yourself, earn your place, or step aside. He swallowed hard, the enormity of the moment pressing down on him. He had missed 5 years. 5 years of laughter, milestones, growth, all without him. And now the first opportunity to reclaim any part of that time hung before him like a fragile thread. Just as Alex opened his mouth to speak, one of the boys squealed with delight and tugged at Maya's hand, pointing directly at him. The world seemed to hold its breath as the first connection between father and sons trembled on the edge of possibility. Alex's heart stopped for a fraction of a second, though he knew it would never truly restart the same way again. 3 little boys stood clustered around Maya, tugging at her hands, laughing and giggling, unaware of the storm they had just stepped into. And then he saw it. One boy, the eldest perhaps, turned his small head, eyes wide and curious. Alex's breath caught. The eyes staring back at him were unmistakable. The same piercing brown that had haunted his dreams for years. The same depth, the same spark, the same silent demand that he noticed them, that he acknowledged their existence. One by one, he realized it. All three had his eyes. All three bore tiny traces of his expressions, his mannerisms, the shape of his smile. It was impossible. It was overwhelming. It was undeniable. "Mama," the smallest voice whispered, trembling slightly. The boy pointed toward him, uncertainty flickering in his gaze. "Mommy, who is he?" Time froze. The room faded. Everything melted into a void of anticipation and fear. Maya's hands tightened around the boy's, protective, shielded. Her posture remained unwavering, resolute. Her voice was steady, firm, but gentle. No one important. The words were a shield, a boundary, a carefully crafted barrier against the flood of emotion threatening to spill over. Alex felt the ground beneath him tilt. The carefully constructed life he had built, the wealth, the power, the titles, crumbled in a single instant. 3 children, his children, standing in front of him, alive, whole, and part of a world he had walked away from. He opened his mouth, wanting to speak, to explain, to beg, to claim some fragment of the family he had lost. But no sound came out. His tongue felt heavy. His chest burned. The boys looked at him, eyes innocent, curious, unafraid. They didn't know what they had inherited, didn't know the weight of their father's mistakes. They only knew a man who looked familiar, who made them feel something they couldn't name. Maya shifted slightly, stepping between Alex and the boys. Her voice, calm but firm, resonated with authority. "This is my family, my life. You will respect that." He swallowed hard. The words pierced him more sharply than any accusation could. She had built a life without him, and she had thrived. She had flourished. And here he was, standing at the edge of a world he no longer owned. The eldest boy took a tentative step forward, curiosity outweighing caution. His small hand reached toward Alex, trembling slightly. The gesture was innocent, natural, and yet it struck Alex with the force of a tidal wave. He could feel every heartbeat, every breath, every silent accusation he had left unspoken over the years. It all culminated in this moment, the pure, raw presence of the children he had never embraced. He wanted to scoop them up, to protect them, to promise them the world. But he was frozen, paralyzed by guilt, by regret, by the realization that time could not be reversed. Maya's gaze held him steady, unwavering, uncompromising. Her eyes told him what her words could not. "You lost this. You abandoned this, and you will have to earn even the smallest place in their lives." Alex felt tears prick the corners of his eyes. He tried to blink them away, tried to stand tall, tried to maintain the mask of control he had worn for decades. But it was useless. The boys giggled, spinning around her, tugging at her sleeves, completely oblivious to the tension that crackled like electricity in the air. "Mommy," the eldest whispered again. Can we play with him?" Maya's lips pressed into a thin line. She shook her head gently. "No," she said, "not yet." The words struck Alex like a hammer. Not yet. Not yet. The full weight of 5 years of absence, of betrayal, of broken promises, crashed over him like a tidal wave. Everything he had controlled, the boardroom, the empire, his pride, felt meaningless in that moment. He had no power here, no influence, no right. And yet he could feel the pulse of life, of blood, of family running through his veins. The very children standing before him were living, breathing proof of the love he had once abandoned. His knees buckled, his breath caught in his throat. He felt the world tilt beneath him. The people around the ballroom were oblivious. Chandeliers shimmered, music floated, conversations continued. But Alex Hayes saw nothing, heard nothing. He was swallowed by the enormity of the moment, consumed by the undeniable truth. He had lost everything that mattered, and now it was right in front of him, yet so impossibly out of reach. Maya took a subtle step forward, just enough to shield the boys completely, her expression unreadable. The strength she had built over 5 years radiated from her every movement. She was a fortress, and he had no key. The boys clutched her hands tightly, sensing the tension in the air, unsure of the rules, unsure of the man who now loomed silently in front of them. Alex's vision blurred with emotion, guilt, regret, desire, fear, love. All collided inside him like a storm. He wanted to kneel, he wanted to beg, he wanted to promise them the world. And finally, unable to contain the weight of everything he had lost, he did. The polished marble floors of the grand ballroom pressed against his knees as he fell forward. The sound of his fall echoed faintly, swallowed by the grandeur of the room. A man powerful beyond imagination. Reduced to a single gesture of vulnerability in front of the woman he had betrayed and the children he had abandoned. Maya's eyes widened slightly, unreadable, but the boys froze instantly, sensing the gravity of the moment. Alex Hayes, the man who had never bowed, had fallen. Not to anyone, not to circumstance, but to the weight of his own conscience, and to the undeniable pulse of the family he had lost. On his knees, chest heaving, Alex whispered, voice breaking, eyes locked on Maya. I will do anything. Please, let me stay. Let me try. The ballroom fell silent, all eyes drawn to the fallen Titan and the mother who had held him at bay for 5 long years. Alex remained on his knees for what felt like an eternity, chest heaving, every muscle in his body tight with the weight of years lost and moments he could never reclaim. Maya's gaze never wavered, her arms still wrapped around the boys, her posture a shield of steel tempered with care. Her voice, calm but cold, finally cut through the silence. Alex, you don't get to just ask for a place in our lives. The words fell like stones, heavy and final. Her eyes held no anger, only measured caution. She had survived betrayal before. She would survive him again if she needed to. I know, Alex whispered, his voice rough from disuse. I know I don't deserve it. But please, just let me try. Let me prove it to you, to them, to all of you. Maya shook her head. You have money, you have influence, you have power. That doesn't fix what you broke. He closed his eyes. 5 years of pride, of empire, of calculated control, all meaningless here. I don't want to fix it with money, he said. I want to fix it with me, with effort, with time, if you let me. Her lips pressed into a firm line. Silence stretched between them, long and tense, as the boys squirmed, tugged at her sleeves, and whispered questions she deftly deflected. Alex remained on his knees, a picture of humility she had never seen from him before. He began small. The next morning he showed up at the boys' school recital, standing awkwardly in the back of the crowded auditorium, hands stuffed in his pockets. He was unfamiliar with this environment. He didn't know the songs, the cues, the little routines. But he was there, and that alone mattered. The boys spotted him and froze mid-step. Recognition and curiosity battled with their ingrained caution. Alex offered a small smile, hesitant, unpolished. He clapped along, even if a beat late, even if out of sync, simply because he wanted them to know he cared enough to show up. Later at home, he attempted dinner. Maya watched from the kitchen counter, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The aroma of burnt garlic and overcooked vegetables filled the apartment, and Alex grimaced at his own failure. Don't worry, Maya said, voice softening just slightly. The boys will survive. You might not. He laughed awkwardly. But the boys, they didn't care. They cheered. They clapped. They ate what they could, giggled at what they couldn't, and in those moments, Alex realized that winning their trust would be harder than any boardroom battle, and yet infinitely more rewarding. Bedtime came. Alex sat on the edge of the boys' bed, fumbling through a picture book, mispronouncing words, stumbling over rhymes. The boys giggled uncontrollably, correcting him, and yet he persisted. Page by page, story by story, he read. He was not perfect. He was not polished. He was present. Maya observed quietly from the doorway. Her heart tightened with cautious hope, though she refused to let herself believe it fully. She had seen men beg. She had seen promises crumble. This was different. This was effort. This was persistence. And yet, she could not yet trust it. The days turned into weeks. Alex appeared at school events, volunteer activities, and casual outings. He was awkward, clumsy, sometimes failing spectacularly, but always showing up. The boys' laughter began to include him. Their tentative smiles grew wider. Their small hands began reaching for him without fear. Maya noticed these changes, but she stayed guarded. She knew better than to let history repeat itself. Trust was earned. Love could be rebuilt, but only if he proved it with actions, not words. Alex never wavered. He learned the boys' favorite games, memorized bedtime routines, and even endured their teasing without frustration. He was learning patience, humility, and the delicate art of being present in ways no corporate negotiation had ever demanded. One evening, Maya returned home after a long day of planning events, checking receipts, coordinating vendors. She entered her apartment, exhausted, expecting the usual quiet. Instead, she found Alex at the dining table, surrounded by drawings, crayons scattered everywhere, the boys giggling and pointing at colorful stick figures. He looked up at her, flushed, slightly embarrassed, but smiling genuinely. "Dinner is edible tonight," he said. Maya paused. A small smile tugged at her lips, though she quickly pushed it down. She could see the effort. She could see the heart behind it. It wasn't enough to erase the past, but it was something she could finally acknowledge. Later that night, as the boys slept, Maya noticed his laptop left open on the dining table. Curiosity, or perhaps caution, made her glance at it. Screensaver, desktop, folders. Nothing seemed remarkable. And then she saw a folder labeled Saved Memories. Inside, photographs. Photographs of her from years ago. From the days she had left, images he had somehow collected, kept, and stored. Proof. Proof that he had looked for her. Proof that he had searched for her even when she believed he had forgotten. Maya's fingers trembled slightly as she clicked on one photo. There she was, unaware of the camera, candid, beautiful, radiant. Next to her, the skyline of the city where he ruled, where he had waited, where he had lost himself searching for her. Her heart raced. This wasn't just an effort in the present. This wasn't just showing up. This was a man who had never stopped caring, a man who had never truly let go. Maya stepped back, breathing quick, unsure whether to feel anger or hope. She had been cautious. She had been strong. She had survived without him. And yet the truth stared back at her from the screen. He had searched. He had remembered. He had wanted her. Her mind raced with questions. Why hadn't he reached out sooner? Why had he let 5 years pass? And most importantly, could she believe him now? The boys stirred in their sleep, small fists curling around blankets, peaceful and unaware of the emotional storm their father had just rekindled. Alex had proved effort, patience, and love in the tangible ways she had allowed. But this was proof of devotion she had never expected. She stood frozen, torn between anger, disbelief, and the undeniable pull of a man who had shown her, in every way possible, that he still cared. Maya closed the laptop slowly, her chest tightening, her mind reeling as she whispered under her breath, He He never stopped looking for me. And at that moment, she realized the game had changed, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to let him win. Maya's fingers lingered on the laptop, trembling slightly, as if touching the evidence of his devotion could somehow make the years disappear. Her heart was a storm, hope battling caution, anger wrestling with disbelief. She had survived 5 years without him, raised 3 children on her own, built a life of strength, independence, and confidence. And yet, here was a truth she had never suspected, threatening to unravel everything she thought she knew. The knock on the door startled her. She glanced up, careful not to show the turmoil in her expression. "Miss Carter." It was Evelyn, a former assistant who had worked closely with Alex during the years she had been gone. Her eyes were earnest, almost apologetic. "Hi, I have to tell you the truth," Evelyn said, stepping inside cautiously. Maya gestured for her to continue, arms crossed, expression neutral but eyes sharp. Evelyn's hands fidgeted nervously. "The events that led to your leaving, they were not what they seemed." Maya's pulse quickened. She waited, every nerve alert, every muscle tense. "Alex, he never intended to hurt you," Evelyn continued. "He planned to propose. That night, the dinner, everything. It was supposed to be perfect. He had bought the ring. He had everything planned. And then—" She took a deep breath, her voice trembling slightly. "A jealous board member, someone who envied his success, his power, and the attention he gave you. They lied. They manipulated information. They sabotaged your relationship, making it appear as though Alex wanted to end things. He didn't. Not ever." Maya's chest tightened. The memory of that rainy night, the heartbreak, the betrayal she had believed for so long, it all came crashing back, but now it felt distorted, fractured in a way she hadn't imagined. "Do you have proof?" Maya asked, her voice quiet, almost fragile. Evelyn nodded. "Emails, messages, internal memos. He tried to reach you, Maya. He tried to explain, but the timing was impossible. He had no way to fight it then." The room spun slightly. Maya sank into the nearest chair, hands gripping the edges, heart hammering in her chest. 5 years. 5 years of anger, resentment, independence, all built on a lie. The thought made her stomach twist, a mixture of relief and rage coiling inside her. She had carried the burden of betrayal. She had endured the nights of crying alone, of hiding her pregnancy, of building a life without him. And all this time, he had loved her. Tears pricked her eyes. She blinked rapidly, refusing to let them fall just yet. "Why? Why didn't he reach me sooner?" she asked, voice trembling. Evelyn looked down. Guilt etched across her features. "He tried. He truly tried. But every attempt was blocked, every message intercepted. He believed you had vanished, that you had moved on. He was devastated, Maya, more than anyone could imagine." Maya closed her eyes, letting the truth settle. The anger she had harbored began to shift, tempered by the revelation of his genuine love. She had been wrong about him. Everything she had built her narrative on was false. A small sound behind her made her look up. Alex stood there, hesitant, unsure, yet full of a vulnerability she had never seen from him before. He had remained silent, respecting her space, waiting for the right moment, though neither of them knew how to define it. "Maya," he said softly, "please, let me explain. I never wanted to hurt you. Every moment, every day. She shook her head slightly, cutting him off. "Don't. I don't even know what to feel right now." He took a step closer, keeping his distance, voice barely above a whisper. "I loved you. I still love you. And I have for all these years. I never stopped." Maya's breath hitched. Her chest tightened with the weight of disbelief and longing. The air between them pulsed with unspoken words, with the years lost, with the truth that had been hidden so cruelly. Her gaze drifted to the boys, sleeping peacefully in their room, oblivious to the emotional storm raging just beyond their door. Her mind raced, thinking of the life they had built together, her alone, his absence, their laughter, their tears. And now the revelation shattered everything she had accepted as reality. She felt anger rise, sharp and bitter, directed not at him but at the system that had kept them apart, at the lies, the sabotage, the manipulation that had stolen years from all of them. And yet, beneath that anger, a fragile spark of something else ignited. Hope, the kind of hope that made the heart tremble, that made the chest ache with longing, that whispered the possibility of redemption. Alex took another step, slowly, reverently, as if every movement mattered. "I'm here, Maya. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I will prove to you, to them, to everyone, that my love, that my commitment is real." Maya's eyes filled with tears she could no longer suppress. All the walls she had built, all the armor she had worn, all the defenses she had crafted, cracked under the weight of truth and the sincerity in his gaze. The room felt suspended in time, no sound but the quiet hum of the city outside, no movement but the slow breathing of two souls who had been separated by circumstance, deceit, and pride. Her mind raced through the memories of the years, the loneliness, the struggle, the boys, her achievements, her heartbreak. And now, the truth. He had loved her. He had searched for her. He had never abandoned her in heart, only in circumstance. Maya stood slowly, knees weak, hands trembling slightly. She took a careful step toward him, each movement deliberate, measured, testing the reality of this revelation. Her voice barely rose above a whisper, quivering with the weight of emotions long suppressed. "All these years, you loved me?" Alex's eyes glistened, voice breaking with emotion as he nodded. "Yes, every single day, every moment, even when I thought I had lost you forever." Time seemed to halt. The world contracted until nothing existed except the truth between them. She felt tears spill freely now, hot and unrestrained. She didn't reach for him, not yet. She didn't embrace him, not yet. But the air between them had shifted. The barriers, though still present, had softened. The path toward reconciliation, toward healing, toward love, had begun. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that the hardest part was over, though the journey was far from complete. Maya's voice shook as she whispered again, eyes wide with disbelief and wonder. "Then, all this time, you were looking for me." And Alex's answer came with a quiet, unwavering certainty. "Yes, Maya, I never stopped." The living room had been transformed into a kaleidoscope of color, laughter, and chaos. Balloons floated along the ceiling, ribbons curled across the polished hardwood, and the scent of freshly baked cake mingled with the faint aroma of candle wax. The triplets' 5th birthday was a spectacle of innocence and joy, the culmination of years Maya had spent raising them with unyielding love. Alex stood at the edge of the room, watching from a distance, his chest tight with anticipation. Every giggle, every squeal, every clumsy step the boys took toward their friends reminded him of everything he had lost and everything he now hoped to reclaim. Maya floated among the children, laughter lighting her face, her arms constantly scooping them up, holding them close, guiding them gently. The same grace, the same strength, the same presence that had once captivated him, now radiated with the quiet confidence of a woman who had survived storms he had never fully understood. Alex's hands fidgeted at his sides. He wanted to speak. He wanted to move. He wanted to tell her, to show her, to beg for forgiveness in a way words alone could never achieve. The boys ran up to him, holding his knees, tugging at his sleeves, laughing with delight. For a fleeting moment he saw them as they truly were, his sons. His heart constricted with longing and regret, but he swallowed the ache, knowing the next step required courage beyond anything he had ever faced. He turned to Maya, feeling the weight of her gaze resting on him, like a judgment he could not escape. Her eyes, steady, unyielding, watched him with careful calculation, measuring his every move, weighing his intentions. He drew a deep breath, letting the tension coalesce into clarity. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered himself onto one knee. The room seemed to hold its breath. The laughter of children, the chatter of guests, the flicker of candles, all faded into a single suspended moment. He clasped his hands together, fingers entwined, a gesture of surrender and sincerity. Tears welled in his eyes, refusing to be hidden, streaming freely down his cheeks. This was not about power. This was not about control. This was about love, humility, and the desperate hope for a second chance. Not as a CEO, he began, voice shaking, raw and unpolished. Not as a man with wealth, influence, or a title. He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat, his gaze never leaving hers. But as a man who has finally learned how to love you, Maya. The room remained silent, all eyes drawn to the emotional display unfolding before them. Even the boys, sensing the gravity of the moment, froze mid-laugh, curiosity and awe shining in their wide eyes. Alex continued, voice steadying, stronger now despite the tears. Maya, give me a chance to be the father they deserve, and the husband you always deserved. The words hung in the air like fragile glass, tremulous yet undeniable. Every syllable carried the weight of years of regret, nights spent in sleepless torment, and moments lost forever. He pressed his joined hands together again, bowing his head slightly, a silent plea wrapped in humility and devotion. It was more than an apology. It was a promise, a vow made not to a board, not to an empire, but to the woman who had captured his heart before life had torn them apart. Maya's hands tightened around the edge of the counter where she had been standing. Her lips parted slightly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She had seen men kneel before her in charm and negotiation, in ambition and persuasion. But this was different. This was unguarded. This was genuine. The boys, sensing the intensity, edged closer to her, looking up at their mother with innocent anticipation. Their small hands clutched her dress, pulling gently, as if sensing that this moment mattered, that it was a turning point in the quiet, fractured history they had unknowingly inherited. Maya's mind raced. Every memory, every hurt, every disappointment from the past 5 years collided with the present. She thought of the nights she had cried herself to sleep, the fear she had carried as a single mother, the effort she had poured into raising her sons alone. And now here he was, stripped of all pretenses, offering not wealth, not power, not control, but himself, completely and utterly vulnerable. Her chest tightened, a mixture of longing and caution battling for dominance. Could she trust him again? Could she risk her heart after everything? And yet, the sincerity in his eyes, the tremor in his voice, the tears that had never been performative but painfully real, whispered a truth she had always feared but secretly hoped for. Alex's gaze lifted, locking onto hers with unwavering intensity. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, Maya, he said softly, voice thick with emotion, but I'm asking for it anyway. Not for me, for us, for them. The room remained still. The guests, sensing the gravity of the moment, watched silently, hearts pulled by the raw vulnerability of the scene. The boys shifted, leaning against Maya, their small heads peeking around her as if waiting for her decision, for the signal that everything might be okay. Maya's hands trembled at her sides, her lips parted, a breath caught between anger, love, and disbelief. She had trained herself to be strong, to rely on no one, to build walls that nothing could breach. And now those walls quivered, threatened by the authenticity before her. Alex remained kneeling, unwavering, hands still joined, tears marking the map of his regret and longing. He waited, every fiber of his being devoted to this single defining moment. Her gaze softened slightly, just enough that he saw a flicker of hope, a hint of possibility. And yet, she said nothing. She did not move. She did not speak. The silence was heavier than any word could have been. The weight of their history, their loss, and the potential for redemption pressed down on them both. All eyes, children, guests, even the quiet staff, remained fixed on the kneeling man and the woman whose heart had been both broken and fiercely guarded. Alex's breath hitched, tears spilling freely. He whispered again, almost to himself, almost as a prayer. "Please, let me be the man they deserve. Let me be the one you can trust again." Maya's chest heaved. Her mind raced, memories flooding in waves, joys, pain, sacrifices, love, regret, and the years that had separated them. Her heart trembled under the weight of the choice before her. Maya stepped back, silent, her gaze unwavering, leaving Alex on his knees, heart pounding, unsure if the answer would be a yes or a heartbreak that would last a lifetime. Maya's steps faltered as she stood there, silent, the world around them suspended in anticipation. The laughter of the triplets, the whispers of the guests, the glow of candles, they all seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the two of them in the center of an emotional storm. Alex remained on his knees, head bowed slightly, hands still joined, tears streaking his face. Every second stretched into eternity, every heartbeat thundering like a drum of hope and fear. She inhaled deeply, the weight of 5 years pressing down, yet tempered by the truth Evelyn had revealed. The betrayal had never been his, the love had never wavered, and the devotion had been constant, even in absence. Maya knelt down slightly, not to join him, but to lower the distance between their hearts. Her gaze softened, letting him see a crack in the armor she had built over half a decade. "You've changed," she whispered, voice trembling but steady. "Not just for them, but for yourself. And maybe for me." Alex lifted his head slowly, eyes searching hers for even a hint of hope, a flicker of forgiveness. "I've had to," he admitted, voice low and honest. "I had to learn patience, humility, love in a way I never understood before. And now I know what matters most." The triplets, sensing the shift in energy, inched closer to their father, tiny hands reaching tentatively, hesitant, yet yearning for connection. Alex smiled softly, holding his hands open for them, inviting, patient, full of the love he had carried silently for 5 years. They clung to him, giggling, tugging at his sleeves, and for the first time he felt whole, not as a CEO, not as a man of power, but as a father. The laughter, unguarded and pure, filled the room with warmth, and even Maya couldn't resist a small, hesitant smile. Alex rose slowly, still keeping his gaze locked on hers. He extended a hand toward her, trembling slightly but determined. "This is who I am," he said softly, voice full of emotion. "I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I've never stopped loving you, Maya. And I will never stop trying to be the man you and the boys deserve." Maya's lips quivered, tears welling as she considered everything, his humility, his persistence, the undeniable love reflected in his eyes, the devotion to her children, and the truth she now knew. Every fiber of her being screamed to protect herself, to guard her heart, and yet there was something undeniable in the space between them, a gravity that pulled her forward despite her caution. The triplets clambered around Alex, their little voices breaking the tension. "Daddy, can you play with us? Daddy, tell us a story. Daddy, hold us." Alex's laughter mingled with theirs, a sound that felt like redemption, like hope, like home. He scooped them up, one in each arm, the smallest clinging to his leg, and spun them around with delight. Maya watched, chest tight with emotion, the sight of him, her boys finally calling him Daddy, stirring a mix of awe and longing deep in her soul. Slowly she approached him, reaching out her hand hesitantly. Alex's eyes widened in anticipation, but he waited, letting her make the choice. Finally, their fingers touched, small, tentative at first, then entwined with certainty. It was a gesture of trust, of reconciliation, of a love that had endured distance, pain, and time. I I forgive you," she whispered, voice barely audible, yet carrying the weight of her heart. Not as a concession, not as a weakness, but as a deliberate, conscious decision to embrace the truth, to embrace him, and to embrace the family they were meant to be. Alex's eyes glistened, a tear rolling down his cheek. "I promise," he said softly, lips trembling, "to never hurt you again, to never let another day go by without showing you how much I love you, how much I need you." The boys giggled, climbing onto both of them, a living symbol of the bond that had been rebuilt from the fragments of the past. Alex held Maya close, their bodies aligning naturally, fitting together like two halves of a heart that had been separated too long. The guests, who had been watching silently, erupted into applause, yet their voices were distant to the family, now cocooned in their own world. The balloons, the cake, the decorations, they all faded to the periphery, irrelevant to the magic that had been restored. Maya rested her head against Alex's shoulder, inhaling his familiar scent, feeling the steady beat of his heart. The boys clung to them, laughing and chattering, filling the room with life, energy, and the undeniable proof of love's endurance. Alex pressed a gentle kiss to the top of her head, voice low and tender. "We'll face everything together now," he whispered. "No lies, no distance, no fear. Just us and our boys." Maya smiled through her tears, a sense of peace washing over her. The years of struggle, the nights of solitude, the storms of betrayal, they had all led to this moment. A second chance at love, a family finally whole. They stayed like that for a long while, wrapped in each other's embrace, letting the laughter of the triplets and the quiet intimacy of their reunion fill the room. The world outside might be chaotic, demanding, and unpredictable, but inside this small sphere of love, they had found their sanctuary. Alex pulled back slightly, holding her hands in his, eyes locking on hers with unwavering devotion. No more running, no more doubts, only us, Maya, only our family. She nodded, a smile breaking free, radiant, confident, and full of warmth. "Yes, only us." The room seemed to glow with a new kind of light, not from candles or chandeliers, but from the love that had finally been restored, unbroken, unshakable, and enduring. Every tear, every heartbreak, every lonely night, they all led to this. The love they had fought for, the family they had built against the odds. The connection that had survived every storm, had triumphed. And in that moment Alex knew, without a doubt, that he would spend the rest of his life protecting, loving, and cherishing them. And Maya, too, knew that she had finally found the man who was worthy of her heart, the father her boys deserved, and the partner she had dreamed of. The triplets cheered, clapping their small hands, pulling both parents into a group hug. Alex and Maya laughed through tears, embracing the chaos, the love, and the unshakable bond of their family. The sun outside dipped low, casting golden light through the windows, illuminating a new beginning. Everything they had lost, every tear, every year of separation, had paved the way for this perfect, fragile, and enduring moment. Maya rested her head on Alex's chest, closing her eyes, whispering softly to him, This, this is our forever. Alex held her close. The boys nestled between them, and with a quiet, heartfelt smile, he whispered back, Yes, Maya, our forever starts now.